Hello and welcome to the PhD Life Raft podcast. I'm Emma Brzezinski and today I'm talking to the fabulous Alex Chapman. We're talking about reasonable adjustments. Alex has been on quite a journey with this and shares some really useful information about what reasonable adjustments might actually look like as a PhD researcher. So I do hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
It is so lovely to have you here. I stalked you to come on this from hearing you talk so brilliantly about reasonable adjustments, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. And you've got real wisdom to share, and I'm very, very grateful for you coming to talk about that. But before we do that, I'm going to ask, as I do everybody, in terms of you telling us a little bit about your PhD journey.
I mean, mine was quite unconventional. I didn't really do like A levels, and like I didn't go straight into a bachelor's. So I ended up. I'm a musician. By trade. I do a lot of composing. I did used to do a lot of performing back in the day, and I'm now on a PhD in music psychology. I left school at 16 and I went to college, which school wasn't anything. I came away with like 2 GCSEs. I think I probably got back excluded about 3 times. It wasn't a great time.
Right.
And then due to family circumstances, I moved from Southern England to Aberdeen.
Wow.
And I worked a bit in music. I had a few college courses up there, and then I took a gap year and I did a bit of work. I then moved into undergraduate. So I came into undergraduate in 2018 at Leeds Conservatoire, and I did composition and community music as my specialism and subspecialism. COVID then hit.
Right.
Joyous?
Yes.
This was when I realised I wanted to do like more psychologically based stuff. And a lot of the stuff had gone online and it didn't really fit with the like neurodivergent paradigm.
Right.
I then went on to a master's at the Royal Northern College of Music to do a joint master's in composition and music psychology. And I specialised in neurodivergent listening experiences in live music settings. And this course opened up a lot of opportunities for me, such as internal funding for a report on accessible venue technology, becoming a part of the Northern Music Psychology group, and it got me more well known for accessibility and inclusion within and outside of the institution. My PhD journey started on the way back from one of these Northern Music Psychology groups with who is now and was my primary supervisor for my master's and PhD.
Right.
And we were on a train back from York, I think it was. And we'd seen like a load of like PhD presentations during the day. And one of them was Melissa Kirby's PhD with Purple Patch Art, which was a Collaborative Doctoral Award. My supervisor basically said to me, why don't you try applying for this? If you've got an industry partner in mind, why don't you give it a go? So I took it upon myself to contact the industry partner. I think I told the supervisor, mid-June, and it was like 3 months from when I initially contacted them. Yeah, we've got all the funding stuff together.
Amazing.
It's supposed to be the industry partner and the supervisor, but I took it to myself to add myself in and kind of like do all the management side of it.
Love that.
And in November, we got the confirmation that I got the funding. It was a miracle because I really didn't think it would happen. And it was like the studies for the internal review panel got concluded as quite large, which they are. I'm scared.
Right.
I'm very scared of that. But yeah, it made everything hopefully a lot smoother. The only thing I'm really dealing with now is trying to cope with the change, because I had the gap year.
Right.
So between my master's and my PhD. So yeah.
Well, what a journey. And I want to give a shout out. I always love to hear about really supportive supervisors. So shout out there to your supervisor. And also, I love the fact that it's conversations, things happen that kind of bring you into this work. And I love that, that this was a conversation on the train that then led to where you are now. And this sense of you taking on the management for that, which I think kind of being really proactive around it and not being afraid to be proactive around it, I think is amazing. As long as hopefully you're not drowning in admin at the moment. I hope that's not happening for you.
I mean, it always happens, but
but I think that sense of really taking the lead on your own project that's amazing. And you mentioned your work is around neurodiversity, and
yeah,
you are neurodivergent, and that's what we want to get into today. In terms of coming into that study as a neurodivergent scholar, and I heard you speaking, we had a neurodivergent scholars meeting. We've just been having these kind of ad hoc meetings, which have been gorgeous. Well, I say that I've really enjoyed them. But you were speaking so eloquently around this particularly around the issue of reasonable adjustments, which has come up as a concern for lots of people. And I was like, Alex,
yes,
please will you come and talk to everyone around this, because people need to know. And you very graciously said yes. So that's what we want to get into in terms of reasonable adjustments. What does it mean, and how what might it look like? How do people apply for them? So compound question there. Start off with what sort of things are we talking about when we're talking about reasonable adjustments as a neurodivergent scholar?
I mean, it took me a while to figure out what I actually needed.
Right.
But in terms of I hate the fact it's based on the medical model. It's grim.
Right. And I'm just going to pick up in case people haven't heard of the medical model. Could you just say a little bit of what that means for people?
So the medical model is like the need for a diagnosis, and how it's like how it functions. So like for ADHD, like the medication is the must, for instance.
Right.
Which doesn't always work, as we've figured out.
There we go. Yes, let's note that, everybody.
But there's the use of like social model side of things, and mixing the medical and the social model in this scenario is probably the best bet. So I know like some universities, for instance, deal with medical models saying, right, you have this condition, this is what you need. Whereas some others like mine say, okay, you have this condition, what can we do to help? And then you have to pick everything out yourself. And it takes a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
Like a hell of a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. So I think that this is really important to kind of to notice and potentially, to be aware of, if you're going to ask for reasonable adjustments, to be aware that there may be a particular way in which your institution approaches it. And as you say, maybe more influenced by the medical model that goes, here's a standard template which we have of what this might mean. There you go, that's for you. If they do that, you don't, as you've noticed, that you can recognize where that's coming from. You don't necessarily have to work with that. You might suggest that there might be amendments to that from where you're coming. But then the social model, this sense of, how you are impacted because of the way in which you're treated by a society and this particular institution, that opens up discussions, but those discussions may demand a lot of you in terms of asking you what you need. And as you say, you might not even know what you need. So that has its own challenges in that.
Absolutely. When I came to undergrad, they were like, what do you need? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
The only thing that like I'd had on my previous one was the fact that I talked really like bluntly. Like people sometimes took it as like me being rude.
Right.
So yeah, that's still on there.
Yes. And that can be really important, I think, especially in a situation, you know, if you're in seminars and if you're in, you might be in journal clubs as a PhD researcher, or you might be in sharing your research material with other doctoral researchers and asking questions of them, and the way that you share that may have a different style to other people.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, like, so I get reasonable adjustments from my institution and I get DSA.
Right.
And
so
DSA
stands for
disabled students allowance.
Yeah, just
but
for
it goes through so like you can get it through student finance. I think you can get it through like funding bodies like research councils and like National Institutes of Health and Research. I'm trying to think of any other major funding bodies that deal with it. There's probably quite a lot more.
Well, people, it's always worth people, while we're touching on that, it's always worth people checking whether they may be eligible for
definitely
DSA. And things are called different things at different institutions, but your disabled students office, whatever it gets called in your institution.
Yeah, well, we have a health and wellbeing hub. Yeah,
there you go. They will be able to give you advice on that, of whether you are eligible, and maybe even help you apply.
Yeah, so like for instance, like I've kind of gone into autistic shutdown at this point through the amount of change. So they get to me some mentoring through DSA.
Right.
So that's like part of it, and that's only just like coming in now. But there's other stuff. So like if you have like a physical disability, you can ask for like an ergonomic workstation in your like research room.
Yeah.
There's like you can state like when you're feeling anxious, this will happen, and this might indicate this.
Yeah.
And like I can't speak for other people.
Yeah. But the brilliant news about DSA, the Disabled Students Allowance, is there's money, right? And money that can, as you say, that can help you to, to access mentorship, or to access particular computer programs or whatever. So there are things that when you say, I need this and I have the funding to provide it, that's how that can work.
But there's also stuff like, if you can't take public transport on a bad day, they can fund you taxis.
Yeah.
There's like it's not a never-ending list, but there are things that are to help, like even just to get you into the institution, like on the grounds.
Yes, and so and again, it may well depend on you to say, and these are the things that I need. And it's okay to say all the things that you need. You don't have to be
selective.
Exactly. Yeah. Say what you need, because as you said, Alex, that they may well be able to fund that for you. And I think sometimes it's useful, isn't it, to talk with people who know you well, as well as to talk with people who don't know you well, because the people who know you well may be able to go, oh, you might need some help with that. You might, that you really value that. Whereas other people who don't know you well might ask really naive, in the best way, questions in terms of taking you fresh and kind of going, okay, well, what might you need? So I think that's a journey in itself, as you say. But there are adjustments that don't need any money, and that are reliant on the institution to attend to how you're functioning as a postgraduate researcher. Yeah.
So, like for instance, like our NCM give me extended library loans.
There you go.
In case I just completely forget out of my life. I can get help in retrieving books from shelves in the library. I can have an audio device in class. I have an ergonomic workstation. So I have like a chair, like there's literally a sign that Wellbeing have put in there saying like, you are not allowed to use or adjust this chair. This is for one person only.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like there's stuff like Peeps as well for the like emergency fire exits and stuff like that.
And I think you also said something about having longer supervision sessions.
I get 25% extra time with my primary supervisor,
which is golden, I imagine.
I mean, I would assume so. I don't actually know how I'm using it yet.
Right. Well, then, I suppose some people might not want extra time with their supervisors, but I think it sounds like you have a really good relationship with your supervisor and be able to take time to explore, because I think, especially for all our neurodivergent friends, sometimes it takes you time to warm up into a conversation. Sometimes it takes you time to think about what you actually want to say. And from the, something that gets said at the beginning of a conversation, it then bubbles up and you go, oh, actually, I want to talk about this now. And so having that extra time, I imagine, would be really quite useful.
I mean, I get, in comparison to like my friends at like some of the other unis, I get quite a lot more supervision time than them anyway.
Right.
So like typically minus the 25%, I get 20 hours with my primary, 10 hours with my secondary, and 20 hours across the project with my industry supervisor. But that's to do with the funding. That's not,
right.
That's not the institution.
Right. So this sense of having things that aren't going to cost the institution money, well, I suppose it in another way it does, with the supervision, for example, because that's workload and all of that. So I suppose it does, that does in a way. But extending library loans doesn't necessarily, and I suppose long term it could be buying extra library books and things. But I think that this is potentially the asking for adjustments that's really going to improve your scholarly life, those pressure points. And I know that you said that you had spent a lot of time thinking about, and that it's it's a work in progress in terms of what is really going to help you on that journey. And so I think a lot of people know about reasonable adjustments in terms of vivas, and that you can ask for an agenda for your viva so things don't take you by surprise, and you can ask for rest breaks and all of those kinds of things. But actually reasonable adjustments along the journey, I think people may not have heard of.
I mean, there's other stuff like leaving the room when you need to. That's on my learning plan at the minute. So like it's not just applicable to even if you say like, I want this for my viva, like you can have that throughout the whole of your time there.
I love this. And I think what it makes me think of is, I talk a lot about going, the PhD is a personal development program and you'll get to know yourself really well. This is a whole nother angle on that, getting to know yourself well, in terms of like, oh, what do I need then? Because of course, a lot of our neurodivergent friends are just running to keep up. And just doing their best to fit in and keep up. And actually to kind of go, I have a right to ask for what's truly going to support me in this research work. And then I have to think about what's truly going to support me in my research work. I wonder if there's been any surprises for you in terms of your reflections on that, and what has really helped, what's really made a difference.
I mean, I didn't think I'd say this, but the ergonomic workstation's made a difference.
Really? It
means that I've got one space that I'm coming into, let's say 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Right.
And I'm just chugging along, and like even having like scheduling, I'll schedule everything in bunches of an hour and a half, because my brain won't take longer than that on a standard typical day.
Yes. And I think this is brilliant information to have. All PhDs need to do this for themselves, in terms of kind of go, how do I work best? And what do I need? But as I say, this is sort of next level on that. But it can be so powerful when you've got it. Like you say, actually, now you've got your space, you can come in, you know that it's there, your seat is there, you've got your slot, and you can get on and do what you want to do without that anxiety of, how is it going to be? Where am I going to be? What's going to happen? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everyone else hot desks in there,
Right.
in these rooms, but
Right.
yeah, they put me right at the back.
Brilliant.
So like, no, like if they come, then it is my desk and it's my chair. Like I've got a height adjustable desk. I have an ergonomic chair that I use.
Because I think hot desking can be incredibly stressful for neurodivergent scholars in terms of like, to other people around you and all that noise and sensory stimulation, but literally not knowing where you're going to be when you go in. You can't prepare your heart for it if you don't know where you're going to be and what is going to be like, or if they're going to be somewhere there. So then people might avoid actually going in. So this is gorgeous. And I know that there was also you very kindly in the session shared this kind of the template of what you've what was there.
That's just what they use, like for everyone. It's just a systematic thing.
Yeah, which I think is great, because I think not all institutions will have that. I think it's just reminding people that it's okay to ask for these things and also share information, because your institution might not have this, but other institutions have. And so you might show your institution and say, look, this other institution has got it. And then quite often institutions go, oh, brilliant, there's a template, fabulous. We can use that with permission, obviously, with permission from other institutions.
But there's like issues around, like, I mean, I feel quite lucky. My institution's quite small. I mean, it feels like that. There's about 1,000 of us minus the junior department.
Right.
And yeah, it's relatively small in comparison to other places. So it feels like there's a bit more of an impact.
Yes, and that they're attending to you, and it's just so brilliant. And I think to kind of recognise the brilliant practice here. So I'm aware of time. It goes so quickly, right? I did just want to say, we wanted to kind of, there is so much more that we could say about reasonable adjustments, but I suppose the kind of headline is you can get them and that is okay. Yes. And please do ask for them.
Definitely.
So that's my summing up, but I want you to kind of have the last word here in terms of, I usually ask people for a top tip, which is a ridiculous question, obviously. But if you were kind of a message for people to take away, if they are particularly struggling around, reasonable adjustments or being a neurodivergent scholar, what would be your top tip?
Okay, I'm going to summarize it in 2 words, but I'm going to explain myself throughout that. I'm going to go with be patient. One, with the institution, because I felt lucky, but I know some who have actually had to fight for this.
Right.
Yeah, and 2, with yourself, because it is a matter of trial and error.
That's gorgeous. That is gorgeous. And I think that sense of being patient with yourself and gentle with yourself, isn't it? That sense of, it's a journey of discovery. And
if something doesn't work, don't worry, just go back and say, it's not working, what's next? Like, even if you don't know what you actually need, you can find it. It just might take a while.
Oh, I love this. And I know that in that meeting you gave us examples of that journey that you've been on and kind of gone, oh, try this out. No, that doesn't work. And that is okay as well. It isn't, as you say, it's not a one-hit wonder that you can kind of go back and renegotiate.
My learning plan makes me look like a complete dysfunctional human, but if it helps, it helps.
This is the thing, and I think it's kind of we that sense of really attending to what really helps you, and it is, I think, what you're highlighting, that sense of vulnerability in that. There is vulnerability in that.
Oh, 100%.
And that's why you want to kind of make sure that you're working with people who understand that, ideally, and are sensitive and thoughtful about that. But knowing that vulnerability will lead to you being able to truly fly and do what you know you can do.
Completely.
so it won't become those daily struggles. Hopefully, will become less.
Like getting in for me is easy now.
Right.
It feels easy.
Right.
Like I'm still juggling a few things.
Right.
But we're grand. I'm doing my 35 hours a week.
Love that. Love that so much. That's a good place to stop, isn't it? Alex, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that, because we talked about vulnerability, and I really appreciate you coming on and talking about your story with this, because this is so important for people to know about, but also doesn't get talked about a lot, and I understand why. Thank you so much for your time. Wishing you
Thank you for having me on.
Wishing you all the best with the next bit of your journey. Keep us posted.
I will do. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening.